1 in every 122 people have been forced to flee their home. There are 84 million refugees in the world. 68% of these refugees originate from only 5 countries. About 42% of these refugees are children. Take a look at the 5 countries hosting 39% of the world refugees. Do you see your country here? So now we have some suggestions for you to help.
What you can do. Keep peace between countries. People will not have to leave their countries anymore. This will decrease the amount of refugees. Accept more refugees. Did you know that the average number of years refugees live in a camp is for 17 years? Refugees will have to stay in a camp and they will be able to live in a real house with their families, if they have one. Support refugees to move, work, and thrive. Refugees often spend many years in their host countries and they need to be able to support themselves and their families. Provide cheap flights to help refugees move between countries. If refugees don't have money for flights, cheap flights will be easier. If they fly, they won't have trouble crossing the border. Reunite refugees with their families. Refugees often get separated from their families, so they need to be reunited with families so that they can become happier. So here is our questions to you, delegates. Now you know what you can do. What will you do? Now we welcome any questions about what we have learned during our UN sessions.
Thank you, speakers, for your very insightful speech. Now we will be entertaining a short Q&A session where the delegates are encouraged to ask any burning questions that they have. Please be noted that if there are no questions, the chair will be calling on the delegates for any of them. Would any delegates like to ask some questions? Please raise your virtual hands high. Delegate of France, you have been recognized.
Thank you, our guest speakers for your guest speaker speech. The delegate of France would like to ask the guest speakers what he can personally do to support the refugees in his community.
Can you please repeat that question?
Delegate, can you please repeat the question?
So if a person is in a community that isn't so welcome to refugees, how should the person be helping the refugees in that community?
Maybe they could donate to the refugee camps, or if they see any refugees, they could help them out.
Oh, thank you so much.
Giving them a bit of money or gifting them some stuff.
Are there any other delegates that would like to ask any questions? Delegate of Pakistan, you have been recognized.
Great. Thank you for insightful speech. I would like to wonder, besides the rampant political instability that is happening around the world recently, we're also facing this widespread of the COVID-19 pandemic. What can we do to help the refugees from getting COVID-19 in like their refugee camps or like in their shelters? What can we do to help them?
Maybe, I guess, help them create better tents so that they can kind of stay away from refugees that have corona so that they become safe. And if any refugees that have corona, maybe the people can quarantine them from the other refugees and give them special medicine and food so that they can get healthier.
Thank you.
Procedural Chair, you have been recognized.
So what is your point on the current Ukraine and Russia situation, and
the refugees that are coming out of the country due to the war?
I think that. Wait, can you please make your question clear? Because I don't really understand it.
What is your just any points on the current situation in Ukraine and Russia and the refugees that are coming out of the country because of the war?
I think that they should, since they're trying to escape their countries, the refugees are getting, because some refugees, they're not allowed to leave their countries, and some men and 18-plus-year-old boys have to fight, and I think that's not really good because a lot of people are dying right now because of Russia's bombing.
Thank you. If there are any questions left, the head chair encourages all delegates to ask them. But if there are none, the head chair would like to ask a question to our guest speakers. What has been your main motivation to join UNIS MUN in elementary school?
I think me and Akari, I don't know if Akari thinks this too, but I think that because there's a lot of problems around the world that have refugees that are escaping from war and bad things happening in their countries, and I think this is such a big problem that I wanted to join and learn more about them, and I wanted to know how I can help them.
Thank you. That was a very informative and insightful session. Thank you, guest speakers. Delegates, please turn on our mics. We can turn on our mics for a little applause. Thank you so much, guest speakers. You are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the conference or watch the conference on our live streaming platforms in case you want to see the debates. Thank you so much, guest speakers. Now we will be moving on to our roll call since we were able to finish early. Delegates, the chair will now commence roll call. When your delegation is called, please raise your virtual hand high and state whether you are present or present and voting. Delegate of Bolivian Republic of Venezuela.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Commonwealth of Australia. Delegate of Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia.
Present and voting.
Delegate of Federal Republic of Germany.
Present.
Delegate of Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
Present.
Delegate of the Hellenic Republic. Delegate of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Present and voting. Sorry.
Thank you. Delegate of the Kingdom of Spain.
Present.
Delegate of Kingdom of Sweden.
Present.
Delegate of People's Republic of China.
Present.
Delegate of Republic of Belarus. Delegate of Republic of France.
Present.
Delegate of Republic of Lebanon.
Present and voting.
Delegate of the Republic of Nauru.
Present.
Delegate of the Republic of Turkey.
Present.
Delegate of the Syrian Arab Republic. Delegate of the United Kingdom.
Present.
Delegate of the United States of America. Delegate of United States of America. If there are any delegates that have joined during the roll call, please send the head chair a direct message to let us know that you are present. Seeing that most of our delegates are now present, the House will now commence opening speeches. The chair will call on the delegation by alphabetical order, and when your delegation is called, please unmute your microphone and state your speech. There will be a time limit of 1 minute, and the chair will alert the current delegate at the 30-second mark with the gavel. The chair reminds all delegates to note that opening speeches are crucial to merging and lobbying procedures that will be held later on. We will now begin opening speeches. Delegate of the Bolivian Republic of Venezuela, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests, on regards of providing adequate housing to refugees awaiting asylum grants, this delegate obviously believes in equality for all in the categorical imperative. However, this delegate believes that there should be no radical means used in solving such an issue. Although housing is provided on a local level and to an extent a governmental level, it is not fully incorporated within the legislation, making it difficult for actual measures to be taken. Not only that, there's no global actual measures being taken, a universal measure, and this delegate only sees a need for such measures to be taken in this House. Recognizing that more than 200,000 people were displaced in 2020, and the numbers only seem to rise as time passes, especially taking into consideration the fact that the EU and America has been experiencing a huge influx of asylum grants, this delegate would like to stress once again that only soft power measures should only be made. All forms of radical measures will only exacerbate the issue at hand, and therefore this delegate would like to urge all delegates to consider rather modified means to tackle the issue, or even possibly respect the sovereignty of nations so the conflict is not exacerbated. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Bolivia. Delegate of the Commonwealth of Australia, please begin your speech if you are present. Seeing as this delegate of Australia is not present, Delegate of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, please begin your speech.
Good day, honorable chairs and fellow delegates. Ethiopia has been and will always be a country that maintains open doors for refugees seeking asylum on its territory. Ethiopia recognizes Eritreans, South Sudanese, Yemenis, and Somalis as prima facie refugees, and at the start of 2018 alone, we had 892,000 refugees who were forced to flee their homes due to conflict, famine, and political instability. So we need adequate housing to host them all. Also, with current events between Russia and Ukraine, we hope other nations agree to host these refugees that are in dire need of asylum. We may unite in order to bring up appealing solutions in order to lessen this problem at hand. Thank you, and many wishes for a fruitful debate.
Thank you, Delegate of Ethiopia. Delegate of the Federal Republic of Germany, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs and distinguished delegates, the Federal Republic of Germany finds it extremely important that refugees awaiting asylum grants are given proper treatment and care in the form of adequate housing. Being the biggest host country in Europe with roughly 200,000 asylum seekers and over 1 million refugees in 2020, Germany is dedicated to keeping refugees safe before granting asylum and allowing them to integrate to society. Throughout 2014, amidst the large amounts of migration, there was an internal affordable housing crisis within Germany, which launched an unprecedented housing policy enabling the temporary construction of residential units specifically for refugees and asylum seekers in areas previously zoned for non-residential uses. Even up until now, Germany is still upholding a high standard of living for refugees and asylum seekers. Given the current situation Ukraine is facing, in addition to accepting a regular influx of refugees, we have opened up our borders to Ukrainians seeking asylum. We urge other countries, particularly those in Europe, who have not done so yet, to also open their borders if able. Displacement is a major issue that tends to affect poor countries who have been caught in conflict because of other nations meddling, as is the case with US involvement in the Middle East. Naturally, inadequate housing leads to health and safety issues for everyone involved, not just the refugees, but your own citizens. These people have come to you for help in their darkest times, and treating them with the basic care and respect they deserve by offering safe and clean accommodation is the bare minimum. The delegate of Germany wishes for a lively and engaging discourse throughout this conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate of Germany, for your opening speech. Delegate of Hellenic Republic, please begin your speech. Delegate of Hellenic Republic.
Hello. Dear honorable chairs and fellow delegates, this delegate of the Hellenic Republic is more than honored to be attending today's conference. Today, it is clear that the situation to grant asylum is worth an international consideration. It is given that there is a strong desire to come to conclusive agreement between all countries in order to prevent the escalation of further global concern. Over the last couple of years, the number of refugees have decreased, yet we are still the main country for irregular migrants that want to enter Europe. However, we do not have the economical structure to help and support all these seekers. As a result, we have fallen into an economic crisis within the last decade. At the same time, the Greek asylum system had been non-functioning, leaving thousands of people trapped in Greece without documents and without assistance to make a living. We have decided to strengthen our migration policies with walled camps and tougher border controls. Otherwise, our country would have fallen apart without the proper support we need. Based on the current circumstances, it is understandable that the topic of immigration may be controversial, and the delegate is looking forward to not only representing the country of the Republic, the Hellenic Republic great viewpoints, but also actively listening to all of the other fellow delegates in today's conference. Thank you, honorable chairs and fellow delegates.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs and distinguished delegates, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan recognizes the need for a combined international effort to solve the problem of providing adequate housing for asylum seekers. Due to several global phenomena, the housing sectors of many countries have been strained as regards their ability to provide adequate and affordable housing. Immigrants often have to face language barriers, cumbersome bureaucracy, insufficient information and advice, discrimination, and laws restricting them from accessing public housing. Taking into account the aforementioned struggles, Jordan urges international collaboration in the mentioned matter, and it makes providing accommodation to asylum seekers one of its goals and strongly believes supporting refugees is an urgent issue. New threats of conflict in recent times would only serve to exacerbate the status quo. As such, Jordan wishes to participate in fruitful discussion with fellow delegates today with the aim of rectifying inadequate housing for refugees. Thank you, Chairs.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, please begin your speech.
Honorable Chair, fellow delegates, and distinguished guests. The problem surrounding the proper settlement of asylum seekers has become increasingly relevant in recent years, not only because of the increased unstableness around the world due to events like the Ukraine crisis and Sudan's military coup, but also due to the rampant situation of the COVID-19 pandemic. And thus, containing the mass transmission of the virus became a major challenge in the process of settling and ensuring the safety of refugees and asylum seekers. As a nation that hosts more than 1.4 million asylum seekers, and guided by Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in which states that everyone has the right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution, the delegate of Pakistan is willing to work with all member nations to draft resolutions that would address this global issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of the Kingdom of Spain, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs and fellow delegates, as the number of refugees around the world increases, the crisis that is the lack of housing of refugees has become more and more urgent. With 26 million new refugees every year, the majority of those people without proper housing, the delegate of Spain believes that it is essential to provide all these refugees with the basic needs of human survival. The delegate of Spain would like to recognize the numerous number of those refugees who seek asylum grants are in desperate need of adequate housing. As the number of refugees are reaching the highest point ever seen, Spain acknowledges that it may not be feasible to comply with all the demands of the refugees, as there are limited resources. However, we must work together to our best ability to house these people who desperately need our help. Therefore, Spain urges that greater attention be paid from the committee to hear the plea of the millions of people who are suffering. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of the Kingdom of Sweden, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests. This is a delegate of Sweden, and she is eager to be participating in this debate. Due to the increasing amount of refugees, mainly from Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq, Sweden in the past has passed numerous national policies, such as the Settlement Act of 2016. Housing for refugees has grown into one of the most urgent policy issues in Sweden, as while it took measures in order to obligate local municipalities to accept a certain amount of refugees, it lacked specificity. In addition, the citizens of Sweden are showing resistance to the settlement of refugees or even the entry of refugees due to a multiple of reasons. Not to mention that due to the increased intake of refugees, Sweden is facing housing shortages. Therefore, in order to combat this issue, the delegate of Sweden would like to focus on the issue of providing adequate housing for refugees, specifically in establishing new international policies or developing on existing ones relevant to the issue. The delegate of Sweden looks forward to a fruitful debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of People's Republic of China, please begin your speech.
Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates, the delegate of the People's Republic of China is delighted for the opportunity to be part of the 2022 UNIS Conference and the chance to find suitable solutions for providing adequate housing to refugees awaiting asylum grants issues. China is a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol. However, its exit entry law did not mention the right to apply for asylum until 2012. As China does not have a refugee status determination procedure, the UNHCR currently manages all applications for refugee status. China is still a developing country. It cannot be expected to take on the burden of helping others, particularly when combined with perceptions that the problem causing the refugee outflows was nothing to do with China, and that accepting refugees poses a risk to Chinese society. Therefore, China is looking forward to the support of UN countries beyond the borders for solutions to the issue. Thank you.
Just a reminder that the time.
Thank you, Honorable President, distinguished delegates.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate of Republic of Belarus, please begin your speech. Seeing as this delegate is not present, Delegate of Republic of France, please begin your speech.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable chairs and fellow delegates, the European refugee crisis has been a large issue since the mid-2020s. Although the delegate of France could have spent the time stating obvious statistics, he would like to spend the time in a more effective way. He would like to identify the problem that exists in the global community. 455,000 refugees are residing in France, while Libya only has 24,000 and Egypt only has 130,000. It is absurd that the nations of the European Union are being forced to take in more refugees than the nations that are culturally closer to the refugees' home country. Yes, the refugees are suffering from linguistic barriers and cultural barriers as they're residing in the European nations. They also have been the target of many hate crime groups, as many refuse to convert to the local culture and many intend to preserve their own culture. And many of these refugees in the EU are in the center of the rapidly increasing crime rates across the European Union due to these hate crimes done on them and due to the lack of funding that they are being provided. This is because the European Union nations are no longer capable of funding the refugees in an as effective way that as we have been doing anymore. because of the mid-pandemic crisis. And yet more of them are illegally flowing to the European nations constantly through the Mediterranean and through the English Channel. To resolve this issue, the delegate of France believes that refugees should be kept in nations that are culturally closer and geographically closer, so for the refugees to go to. Not everyone can continuously flow into Europe. We need to find a solution. Not everyone can seek asylum in the European nations. The time has come for the global society to seek other countries to store these refugees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, delegates. Delegates, you are reminded that there's only 1 minute to perform your opening speech, and if the delegate passes through that time, the procedural chair will alert them. Delegate of Republic of Lebanon, please begin your speech. Delegate of Lebanon.
Honorable chairs and fellow delegates. The past decade has seen a large upsurge in refugees fleeing from conflict-torn war zones and the rule of unstable institutions, with one of the most detrimental consequences of these mass migrations being the lack of adequate housing provided for the said refugees. The Republic of Lebanon has been at the front line of receiving and providing for hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers. Today, refugees make up 25% of the country's population, the largest per capita population in the world. To resolve the issue of inadequate housing for asylum seekers, the delegate urges all countries to gather funds and give first-hand aid in providing shelter to refugees, especially in the Middle East, as despite recent political developments in Ukraine, this region remains a crucial area for humanitarian crisis. The delegate's own country has for some time been limited in providing resources due to economic turmoil, with the mass migrations affecting the distribution and quality of life in the Republic of Lebanon. We urge all delegates to put resources towards the humanitarian crisis. Thank you. The delegate looks forward to a fruitful conference.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of Republic of Nauru, please begin your speech.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, the Republic of Nauru realized the importance of providing adequate housing for refugees awaiting asylum grants. However, refugees has overloaded Nauru, a small nation which economy heavily dependent on the Commonwealth of Australia, which Nauru does not have the capacity to provide enough for the refugees, which raise problems about the safety and well-being of refugees that resided within the nation. The Republic of Nauru is satisfied that America and New Zealand have offered and helped refugees at Nauru to be resettled in their countries. Having said that, Nauru still encourages and urges country to give a hand in accommodating refugees and relieving Nauru from the refugee crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of Republic of Turkey, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and most esteemed guests, this is the delegate of Turkey speaking. In recent years, countries have been discussing possible solutions regarding unqualified refugees, and asylum seekers had not been resolved yet. Today, Turkey holds 4 million refugees and several 100,000 asylum seekers from neighboring countries such as Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iran. This delegate believes that it will be substantial to come up with a solution of countering asylum seekers without protection of human rights from their own country. After all, I am hoping to work with all nations and conduct a successful debate. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Delegates, please be reminded that the use of personal pronouns are not allowed in this conference. Delegate of the Syrian Arab Republic, please begin your speech.
Find him. I'm having a hard time.
To take part in this conference here today. The committee has gathered here today in regard to the topic of refugees and adequate housing to refugees awaiting asylum grant. The Syrian Arab Republic, in fact, has nearly 6 million Syrian refugees. We recognize that the Syrian Arab Republic had one of the world's largest refugee crises. We recognize that refugees are a humanitarian problem. However, the delegate would like to emphasize that the refugee problem is not permanent, where there is an overflow of the refugees despite the limited land. The delegate look forward to the clarity of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of the United Kingdom, please begin your speech.
Honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and esteemed guests of the GA6 legal committee. The delegate of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland believes that the provision of adequate housing for refugees and asylum seekers is necessary. Additionally, this delegate believes that further provision of aid is necessary to support the rights of these refugees. The United Kingdom currently provides housing to all refugees and asylum seekers, with financial support being available, as well as provision of sanitation, food, and clothing. In addition to this delegate hopes to achieve further support for refugees, especially in the aspect of security and housing and the improvement of the current asylum grant system. Thank you, honorable chairs, fellow delegates, and esteemed guests.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate of the United States of America, please begin your speech.